Sebastian Thorne had no heart. Or if he did, it had stopped beating 30 years ago, buried under billions of dollars and the eternal ice of cruelty. The man known as the Old Wolf of Wall Street sat behind the wheel of a jet-black Rolls-Royce Phantom, gliding through the storm pouring down on New York as if it wanted to drown the entire city. Inside the car was absolute silence, completely opposite to the chaos outside. Sebastian had just left the headquarters of Thorne Enterprises after signing the decision to fire 400 employees in the blink of an eye. Not a hint of regret. Not a single blink. The phone connected through the Bluetooth speaker echoed with the trembling voice of his assistant. "Sir Thorne, the unions are protesting in the lobby downstairs. They say they have children to feed, they beg you to reconsider." Sebastian smirked, his finger tapping rhythmically on the leather steering wheel. "Tell them that if they spent even half the time working hard as they do whining, they wouldn't have been fired. I don't run a charity shelter, I run an empire." Hang up. The call went dead. Sebastian hated weakness. He hated those who used poverty to justify failure. And above all, he hated children. Noisy, filthy, troublesome creatures. The car stopped at a red light at a deserted intersection. The wipers worked at full power, sweeping away the streaming waterfalls of rain on the windshield. That was when he saw it. A small figure, huddled next to the traffic light pole. A little girl, around 7 years old, wearing a thin, torn, soaked t-shirt clinging to her body. She was shivering violently, her lips purple from cold. Sebastian frowned, intending to hit the gas as soon as the light turned green. But then, the headlights of the car across the intersection swept by, illuminating the child's face. Sebastian froze. His breath caught in his chest. Those eyes. Big, round, frightened, but containing a painful resignation. "Emily?" Sebastian blurted out unconsciously, his hand gripping the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles turned white. Memories rushed back like a punch to the face. 30 years ago. Emily, his little sister, also 7, also skinny like that. She had died in his arms on a similarly cold, rainy night, just because he back then a useless kid didn't even have $50 to buy antibiotics. Emily's death was the reason Sebastian became the monster he was today. He had vowed to own all the money in the world so he would never again be helplessly watching a loved one die. But Emily was dead. That child couldn't be his sister. Logic screamed at him to drive away. He had a $500 million merger meeting waiting on the other side of the city. But his legs wouldn't listen. Instead of stepping on the gas, he pressed the button to lower the car window. Wind and rain blasted into the luxurious interior, soaking his expensive Armani suit. "Hey kid!" Sebastian shouted, his voice booming over the sound of the rain. The girl flinched, stepping back, her eyes wide with fear. She looked at the massive car, as if it were a metal monster. "Don't just stand there like an idiot. You want to freeze to death." She still didn't answer, only shook her head, her teeth chattering uncontrollably. Sebastian saw the despair in her eyes, the same eyes he had seen in the mirror for 30 years. A jolt ran down his spine, collapsing every strongest wall he had built. He did something insane. Something that, if the press knew about it, they would think he had gone crazy. Sebastian reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a keychain with a gold-plated access card. It wasn't a hotel key. It was the spare key to the Summit, the most secure and luxurious penthouse in New York, where he lived alone. "Take it." He tossed the keys out the window. They fell into a puddle at the girl's feet. She looked at the keys, then at him, utterly confused. "Listen carefully," Sebastian ordered, his voice as sharp as if he were commanding a billion-dollar deal. "See that tallest tower? The top apartment. Swipe the card in the elevator. The door code is 1994. The girl hesitantly picked up the keys, her hands trembling. "But why?" Her voice was weak, hoarse like a kitten meowing. "Because I don't like seeing filthy things ruining the view of my city," Sebastian lied, hiding the tremor in his chest behind his usual harshness. "Go up there. There's food in the fridge. Automatic heating. Don't touch anything expensive, or I'll throw you from the 80th floor. That she, Marion, She clutched the keys as if they were her last lifeline. Thank you. Sir. Don't call me sir. And don't make me regret this stupid decision. The light turned green. Sebastian closed the window, sealing out the cold world. He stepped on the gas, the Rolls-Royce speeding into the rain, leaving the little girl behind. He checked the rearview mirror one last time, seeing her start running toward the tower. Sebastian exhaled, regaining his cold expression. He reassured himself, just one night. The house's AI system would monitor her. Tomorrow morning he would call social services to throw her out. He picked up the phone and called his assistant. Prepare the meeting room. I'll be there in 15 minutes. And fire the guard at the main gate if he dares ask why I'm wet. Sebastian Thorne drove to his multi-million-dollar meeting, convinced he had just done a spontaneous act of charity to ease his conscience. He had no idea that throwing that keychain didn't just open the door to his home. It had just opened the gates of hell. 10 o'clock the next morning, Sebastian Thorne stepped out of his private elevator, in a better mood than usual. The merger meeting had been a resounding success, adding $2 billion to the corporation's market value. He loosened his silk tie, picturing the scene waiting for him, a little girl sitting timidly on the sofa looking at him with grateful eyes as if he were a living saint. He would give her a few $100s and have someone take her to some decent shelter. Sebastian entered the code. Beep. Click. The heavy oak door swung open. But instead of the familiar scent of agarwood and leather of wealth, a foul stench hit him so hard he nearly retched. The smell of mud, spoiled food, rancid urine, and fear. What the hell? Sebastian growled, stepping inside. The sight before him made his leather briefcase drop to the floor with a thud. His $50 million penthouse had turned into a war zone. The priceless art sculptures were dragged and stacked to form a fort in the middle of the living room. The hand-woven Persian rug was smeared with black muddy footprints. Pizza boxes, water bottles, and bread crumbs were scattered everywhere. But the worst thing wasn't the mess. Stop. Don't come closer. A young voice, shaky but threatening, shouted from behind the fort. Sebastian squinted. It was Anna, the girl from yesterday. But she no longer looked frightened. She was standing wide-legged in front of the sofa, both hands gripping a pair of scissors she had taken from his kitchen. Pointed straight at Sebastian. And Anna wasn't alone. Behind her, peeking from behind the sculptures and sofas, were 5 other pairs of eyes staring at him. Sebastian went numb. What the hell are you doing? He shouted, pointing at the chaos. I told you to come here to avoid the rain, not to open a refugee camp in my house. Where did these brats crawl out from? They are my teammates. Anna shouted back, still gripping the scissors even though her hands were trembling. You're not allowed to hurt them. Sebastian advanced, about to snatch the scissors, but stopped when he saw the intruders clearly. A boy around 5, Lucas, stepped out to stand next to Anna. He had a scar on his forehead, probably from falling while running too fast. He was trembling but still puffed out his chest. Don't you dare touch Sister Anna. I'll bite you. Next to Lucas was Toby, 4 years old, clutching a torn, filthy teddy bear so dirty its color was unrecognizable. He looked at Sebastian and burst into tears, his face streaked with muddy grime. Against the wall was Daisy, 5, her blonde hair tangled like a bird's nest, and Mia, for a girl with big round eyes but empty, hollow, eerily lifeless. Mia had only one shoe on her left foot, her right foot was wrapped in an old wool sock, full of holes and soaked with rainwater. But the thing that made Sebastian's anger extinguish instantly like a flame meeting ice water was the smallest child. In Anna's arms was a 3-year-old boy, Leo. The boy was limp, his head slumped on Anna's shoulder, his thumb clamped tightly in his mouth. His face was flushed red, his breathing heavy and wheezing. What's wrong with him? Sebastian asked, his voice lowered, his eyes fixed on Leo. Anna tightened her hold on her tiny baby brother, tears starting to spill, but she tried to keep a fierce expression. He has a fever. Very high. Your fever medicine in the first aid cabinet didn't work. Please. Don't kick us out now. Leo will die. Sebastian stood frozen in place. He looked at the scissors in Anna's hand, then at Leo gasping for air. He had thought the girl used the key to save herself. But no. In last night's storm, this skinny little girl hadn't run away alone. She had gone back, dragged this whole ragged squad along, pulling them across the entire city to reach safety. She did what he hadn't been able to do for Emily. Silence covered the room, broken only by Toby's sniffles and Leo's rasping breaths. "Put the scissors down," Sebastian said, his voice no longer carrying that cruel command, but low and exhausted. "I'm not going to hurt you. Lay the boy on the couch. I'll call my private doctor." Anna hesitated for a second, then slowly lowered the scissors. Her tiny shoulders collapsed from exhaustion. "Thank you," she whispered. But just as the tension in the air loosened, a strange sound echoed, shattering the quiet of the penthouse. Beep. 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 Sebastian jerked. That sound wasn't from his phone, nor from the alarm system. It came from the children's direction. He whipped around, eyes scanning for the source. "What's making that noise?" he snapped. The kids looked at each other in confusion. Anna frantically checked her pockets. Beep, beep, beep. The sound was faster, more urgent. Sebastian's eyes landed on Mia's foot, the little girl missing one shoe. The remaining shoe, torn and muddy, had a flashing red light blinking on its worn-down rubber sole. Anna's face went ghost white. She lunged forward, ripped the shoe off Mia's foot, and hurled it across the room like a live grenade. "No. No way!" Anna screamed, terror exploding in her eyes. "He planted it in her shoe. He found us." Sebastian hadn't even understood yet when the building's AI system echoed a cold voice. "Warning. Perimeter security has been disabled. Main door is being forcibly breached." Sebastian looked at his Patek Philippe watch, then at the 6 children huddling together like baby chicks facing the talons of an eagle. Dangerous men weren't knocking. They were breaking the door to get in. And this time, his money likely wasn't what they wanted. The red security siren blared across the penthouse, but lasted only 3 seconds before dying abruptly. A deadly silence fell, far more terrifying than noise. The high-end, multi-million-dollar security system of Sebastian Thorne had just been snapped like a cheap toy, showing these intruders were no ordinary threat. Sebastian lunged to the control panel on the wall, his fingers flying across the touchscreen, but only a pitch-black screen appeared. "Damn it! They cut the main power." Sebastian roared, spinning toward the kids. "To the study. Right now. Pull the 3rd bookshelf from the left, behind it is the safe room." Anna's face had gone pale, but her reflexes were shockingly fast. She hoisted Leo up and yelled to the others. "Run. Lucas, hold Mia's hand. Toby, stop crying, run now." "But my bear." Toby whimpered, reaching for the torn stuffed bear lying on the floor. "Leave that bear." Sebastian barked, lunging forward to grab Toby by the collar and lift him like a kitten. "If you want to live, run." The group of children scrambled toward the study. Their footsteps thudded against the wooden floor. The safe room door, a 10-centimeter thick block of steel perfectly disguised, began to slide open. But it was too late. Bang! The massive oak front door burst open. 2 enormous men, built like giants, wearing black leather jackets, stepped inside, steel rods in their hands. And walking between them was Silas. He wasn't big. On the contrary, he was thin, with a gaunt face and deep, snake-like eyes. Silas wore a long trench coat as he walked calmly across the mud-stained Persian rug, as if he were the true owner of this place. "Well, well, well." Silas clapped slowly, the dry sound echoing through the tense air. "A nice apartment, Mr. Thorne. A bit messier than a billionaire's standards, but I suppose my little rats caused all this." Anna stood frozen in front of the safe room. She hadn't managed to push the others inside. Silas blocked their escape with nothing but his murderous presence. Sebastian set Toby down and stepped forward, shielding the children. He adjusted his collar and regained his cold, signature demeanor. "Who the hell are you? And who gave you permission to break into my house?" Silas snorted, revealing yellow-stained teeth. "Who I am doesn't matter. What matters is that you're interfering with our internal affairs." Return the 6 sponsorship files to me, and I'll leave right away. I promise not to tell the journalists that the great Sebastian Thorne is illegally harboring children. That news would tank your stock price, I'm sure. Sponsorship files? Sebastian sneered. I thought slavery was abolished in the 19th century. Silas clicked his tongue, shaking his head in fake disappointment. Don't be such a hypocrite, Mr. Thorne. You deal in numbers, I deal in service. We're both businessmen. These kids owe me for food, for shelter. Now step aside, before I add time loss fees to your bill. No! Anna shouted from behind Sebastian, her voice cracking with fear but filled with hatred. He's lying. He's going to send Mia and Daisy to work somewhere very far away. He scares Lucas every time he messes up. Don't give us to him. Silas narrowed his eyes, staring at Anna coldly. Anna, you've been very naughty. When we get home I'll have to discipline you properly. He flicked his hand. The 2 giant henchmen tightened their grips on the long, cold steel rods. Sebastian didn't step back. He stood like a stone statue. I'll give you one last chance, Sebastian said, his voice so low it was frightening. Get out of my house. Right now. Silas burst into loud laughter, the sound echoing through the large room. Slowly, he reached into his coat. Mr. Thorne, you're used to ordering around weak office workers, so you've developed delusions of power, huh? Here, your money won't do anything. He pulled out a handgun with an absurdly long silencer, black and ice-cold. He didn't aim at Sebastian, he aimed straight up at the empty space near the ceiling. Click! The dry sound of the gun being cocked echoed. That single sound was enough to make the room hold its breath. The children shrank back. Toby covered his mouth to keep from crying. Anna covered Leo's eyes. Silas aimed the gun directly at Sebastian. Then shot a crazed glance at the sobbing child in his arms as a final warning. I'm counting to 3. Move, or I'll pull the trigger. 1. The air thickened. The smell of death hovered above them. Sebastian looked at the black barrel, then at the 6 pairs of eyes staring at his back, desperate, relying on him like he was their last shield. 2. Silas continued, the smile on his face widening. Sebastian sighed. Slowly, he raised his left hand and removed the $200,000 Patek Philippe watch from his wrist. He set it gently on the side table, careful as if afraid to scratch the sapphire glass. Then he looked up, straight into Silas's eyes. The gaze of a billionaire vanished, replaced by the eyes of a wild beast, cornered the gaze of someone who had grown up in the darkest alleys before putting on an expensive suit. Silas, Sebastian said, his voice light but so chilling that the 2 henchmen instinctively stepped back, you made 2 mistakes. 1 was stepping into my house, and 2 was thinking I'm just a businessman. Asked. Sebastian's declaration had just ended, and he did not charge at Silas immediately. Instead, he spoke a short sentence into the empty air, his voice icy cold as if ordering death itself. Nightfall protocol. Shut everything down. Immediately, a sharp click echoed. Every light in the penthouse went out. The thick smart curtains automatically dropped down over the glass windows, blocking every source of light from the city of New York outside. The room plunged into absolute darkness. A pitch-black night, thick like ink. What the hell is this? Turn the lights back on. Silas's voice rang out, mixed with panic and fury. He swung his gun wildly in the dark. Shoot. Shoot forward. Bang. 2 gunshots exploded harshly, the muzzle flash illuminating Silas's twisted face for a split second, but the bullets only lodged into the far drywall. Then the screaming began. Not Sebastian's scream but one of the henchmen's. Ugh. A loud thud sounded in the darkness, short and decisive. Right after that, silence swallowed the space. The henchman had been taken down instantly, not even able to utter a final word. That guy. Where is he? I can't see him. The remaining henchman shouted, swinging his steel rod blindly in desperation. Sebastian did not answer. In the darkness, he was no longer the refined billionaire. He had returned to the wild beast from the slums of his childhood, where he had to fight with bare hands to protect himself and his sister. He moved silently, knowing every inch of the furniture in his own home. Another loud crash echoed, as if a heavy object had slammed onto the floor. The second henchman lay motionless, completely incapacitated. Only Silas's frantic breathing remained. He was trembling, his back pressed tightly against the wall, the gun in his hand shaking without aim. "What are you?" Silas hissed, fear flooding his mind. "Come out. I'll send you straight to hell." "Lights." Sebastian's voice sounded right beside Silas's ear, so close he felt the cold breath brush his neck. The ceiling lights burst to full brightness. The sudden intensity blinded Silas. When his vision returned, the sight before him made his heart pound. His two giant henchmen were sprawled across the floor. One was clutching his arm, groaning in pain, the other completely unconscious. Sebastian stood in the middle of the room, adjusting the cuff of his shirt. His suit remained pristine, only his hands were red from the force of impact. Silas backed up, stumbling over a chair leg. He looked around for an escape route, but the front door was blocked. His eyes landed on Toby, the slowest child, who still hadn't managed to get into the safe room, standing behind the sofa sobbing. In the desperate panic of a cornered animal, Silas lunged forward, grabbed the back of Toby's shirt, and yanked the boy up, holding him at his side like an object. The child struggled but could not escape his steel-like grip. He pulled out the gun and aimed the barrel toward Sebastian, his finger resting threateningly on the trigger. "Sebastian Thorne!" he screamed. "Take a good look. You want to be a hero? Let's see if you're faster than my bullet." Silas tightened his grip on Toby's shoulder, keeping him from running, his eyes locked on Sebastian. "I'm counting to 3. Move aside, or I'll blow your hand off and take the boy right in front of you." 1. Sebastian stopped. His expression did not change, not a hint of worry or pity. It was so cold, so ruthless, that Silas grew even more terrified. "You think I care about his life?" Sebastian asked, voice steady. "I met these kids an hour ago. Kill him. And then I'll cripple you for life in prison so you'll regret ever stepping in here." Silas froze. He stared into Sebastian's eyes, searching for deception, but found only a pitch-black abyss. He hesitated. That hesitation killed him. Bang! Sebastian seized the gun and pulled the trigger without a shred of hesitation. The bullet slammed into the wooden floor, just millimeters from Silas's fingers. The deafening shot next to his ear made Silas scream, collapsing onto the floor, his face drained of blood in sheer terror. He released Toby. Toby fell with a thud, then scrambled toward Anna in panic. Sebastian stepped forward, towering over Silas, his shadow swallowing him whole. He leaned down, his sharp gaze paralyzing Silas, who didn't dare move even a finger. Sebastian pointed the cold barrel straight at Silas, his eyes sharp as daggers. "Please. Don't." Silas begged, tears and snot streaming down his face. "I'll go. I'll never come back." Sebastian leaned lower, staring deep into the eyes of the man beneath him. "I'm not handing you over to the police yet, Silas. Because prison is too gentle for someone like you. What are you planning to do?" "I'm going to buy your filthy orphanage," Sebastian said, every word like a nail driven into the air. "I'll buy that entire lot. And I'll flatten it to the ground. You will lose everything. And when you have nothing left, I'll throw you into the same cage with the people you once sold out. We'll see how long you survive." Sebastian delivered a decisive blow that knocked Silas unconscious. The room fell silent, broken only by Toby's quiet sobbing. Sebastian stood there, gun still in hand, breathing heavily. He knew he had just exposed his true face, the face of a monster. He turned, bracing himself for the terrified eyes of the children. Surely they would see him as a demon, fleeing from him just as they fled from Silas. "Don't look at me," Sebastian snapped, turning his back, ready to walk away. "I'm not a good person." But before he could take a step, a tiny pair of arms wrapped around his leg. Then another pair. Then a third. Sebastian froze and looked down. Toby, tear-streaked and trembling, was hugging his right leg. Anna, Lucas, Daisy, and even barefoot Mia all rushed over, clinging to him. They weren't shaking in fear of him. They were clinging to him like he was the only mountain shielding them from the storm. "Thank you. Thank you." Anna sobbed, burying her face in his disheveled suit. Sebastian stood stunned, the gun dangling loosely in his hand. For the first time in his life, his frozen heart felt a strange warmth. He had killed the human part of himself to become a monster, yet that very monster had just saved these angels. The police stormed in 5 minutes later, but they did not come to save anyone, only to clean up the aftermath. Silas and the 2 henchmen were handcuffed and dragged away, leaving the room a battlefield of debris scattered across the expensive Persian rug. Before being shoved into the police van, Silas looked back at Sebastian with a twisted, meaningful smile, as if he knew that the children's nightmare wasn't over. It had simply morphed into another shape. Bureaucracy. Following the police was a woman around 50, wearing a stiff gray business suit and holding a thick clipboard. She stepped over everything with a detached expression, as if inspecting a food safety violation. This was Miss Vance, a representative of the Social Welfare Bureau. "Thank you, Mr. Thorne," Miss Vance said, her voice flat, emotionless. She pushed up her glasses and glanced at the 6 children huddled in the corner. "We've been trying to track this group of children for 3 months. Now, per procedure, we will take them in." Sebastian frowned. "Take them in? Where are you taking them?" "The St. Jude Orphanage in Queens will take Anna and Lucas. Toby and Mia will be transferred to the Bronx Intake Center. And the 2 youngest. Miss Vance flipped a page. "We haven't found placement yet. They may need to be separated and placed in temporary foster homes in New Jersey." Her words dropped like a ticking bomb. Anna, who had just calmed down, immediately spiraled into panic. She rushed forward, spreading her arms protectively in front of the others. "No. Don't separate us. You can't do that. Anna, these are the rules," Miss Vance said coldly, signaling 2 police officers to step forward. "You don't get to decide. You're just a child." Chaos erupted instantly. When an officer tried to pick Leo up, the boy screamed, the sound so heartbreaking it pierced the air. Anna shrieked, lunging forward and biting the officer's hand hard. "Let him go. You monster. Let go. Restrain the girl," Miss Vance ordered. Lucas and Toby also lunged forward, punching and kicking wildly at the legs of the adults trying to pull them apart. A tragic and cruel scene unfolded right in the luxurious living room of Sebastian's home. The children who had just escaped the hands of a demon were now being torn apart again by the very people claiming to represent the law. Sebastian watched, and once again, a cold fury rose within him. He saw Leo struggling in the officer's arms. Saw Anna's helpless desperation. "Stop!" Sebastian's shout crashed through the room like thunder, freezing everyone in place. He stepped forward, snatched Leo out of the officer's arms, and handed him back to Anna. The boy immediately stopped crying and clung tightly to Anna's neck. "Mr. Thorne," Miss Vance frowned, her tone irritated. "You are obstructing law enforcement. We need to take the children. They're not going anywhere," Sebastian declared, standing between the children and the government officials. "I will adopt them. All of them." Miss Vance looked at him as if he had just announced he was an alien. She let out a mocking laugh. "You're joking, right? You're single. You're a businessman who works 18 hours a day. You have a history of violent behavior in your youth. And most importantly, you have 0 experience or certification in childcare. You're entirely unqualified. Your application would be thrown out before it even hit the inbox." "I wasn't asking for your opinion," Sebastian replied coldly. "I was informing you. Rules are rules, Mr. Thorne. Your money can't buy the child protection process." Sebastian didn't argue. He pulled out his phone and dialed a number that very few people had. "Governor, it's Sebastian. About the $1 billion shopping center project in your state. I'm considering pulling my investment and moving it elsewhere. Unless my emergency foster care application is approved in the next 5 minutes. A panicked voice burst to life on the other end. Sebastian cut him off. "I want emergency temporary guardianship of the 6 children currently in my home. Right now. Tonight. You have 5 minutes to call the director of social welfare. If these kids walk out my front door, well, you know. He hung up. The room was dead silent. 2 minutes later, Miss Vance's phone rang. She answered, her expression shifting from annoyance, to shock, to fear. Yes. Yes, director. But the procedure. Yes, I understand. Yes, sir. She hung up, her hand trembling. She looked at Sebastian with a mix of hatred and fear. You've been granted special temporary guardianship. For 30 days. But I'm warning you, Mr. Thorne, we will monitor you closely. One scratch on any of these children, and I will put you in prison myself. Please leave my home, Sebastian said, pointing at the door. And take your hypocritical attitude with you. Miss Vance signaled for the police to retreat. The penthouse door closed. The outside world was shut out. Sebastian turned back. The 6 children stared at him, eyes wide in disbelief. They didn't understand laws or power, they only knew that this man had beaten both their kidnappers and the people who tried to tear them apart. But Sebastian didn't smile. He felt a crushing weight settle on his shoulders. He had just used money and power to keep the 6 most troublesome kids in the world. He, a man who hated noise and hated problems, was now the father of 6 children. All right, Sebastian exhaled, looking at the chaos in the living room. Now we have a bigger problem. Which one of you knows how to change diapers? Because that little guy just peed on my $5,000 crocodile leather shoes. Anna looked down at Leo's foot, then up at Sebastian. Hesitating. Are you really letting us stay? Sebastian sat on the sofa, rubbing his temples. Yes. I just bought myself trouble, that's all. He stood up, walked to the control panel, and activated the magnetic locks on all the doors. From this moment, no one goes in or out. We're staying here. And God help me. I don't know what the hell I'm doing anymore. N1 Mega. 3 days after using his influence to keep the children, Sebastian Thorne officially realized that running a multinational corporation was 1,000 times easier than raising 6 wild street kids. The penthouse that Architectural Digest once praised as the pinnacle of tranquility and luxury now looked like it had just been hit by a Category 1-2 hurricane. A hurricane named children. No. Don't draw on that. Toby. Sebastian shouted, diving across the glass table. But it was too late. Toby, with an innocent, gleeful grin, had just completed a neon-orange scribble masterpiece right in the middle of a $200 million merger contract. It's a turkey, Uncle Seb. Toby beamed proudly, holding up the ruined contract. Sebastian grabbed his head and collapsed onto the sofa, the cream Italian leather sofa now smeared with cookie crumbs and apple juice stains. That's not a turkey, Toby, Sebastian groaned, his voice hoarse from lack of sleep. That's the financial future of 2,000 employees. The front door swung open. Miss Hilda, the 10th nanny he had hired in 72 hours, stepped out with a flushed face and hair tangled with chewing gum. I quit. I have cared for royal children of the Arabian Peninsula, but these little devils are beyond human endurance. That boy Lucas just taught your macaw to swear at me. I'll pay you triple. Sebastian stood up, desperately pulling out his wallet. 5 times. Just stay until tonight. No. Keep your money and buy yourself some tranquilizers. She barked before slamming the door, leaving Sebastian frozen in the middle of the battlefield. The truth was, money couldn't solve this problem. The children, used to surviving on the streets and under the control of a trafficker, trusted no stranger. They formed an unbreakable defensive unit. They bit nannies, threw food at housekeepers, and only obeyed 2 people, Anna and Sebastian. That night, Sebastian sat in his office, exhausted to the point where his hands trembled as he held his glass of whiskey. On his computer screen was a list of the most expensive boarding schools. I can't do this, he muttered to himself, hovering the mouse over the consultation button. They need professionals. They need discipline. I'm just a dictator who knows how to make money. And residence. Just as his finger was about to click, a sound floated from the children's bedroom. A soft, melancholy melody. Sebastian tiptoed closer, pushing the door open slightly. Under the dim nightlight, Anna was holding Leo in her arms. The boy was fussing from his mild fever returning. Anna stroked his back gently, singing quietly. "Sleep, little one, don't fear the dark night. The stars above will guide you home." Sebastian froze. It was the lullaby his mother used to sing. The lullaby Emily, his sister, had whispered in her final breath on that fateful rainy night. "How do you know that song?" Sebastian stepped into the room, his voice breaking. Anna flinched, stopped singing, and tightened her hold on Leo defensively. "My mom taught me. Before she left. She said it would protect us from bad dreams. You're going to send us away, aren't you? I saw you looking at boarding schools." Sebastian looked into Anna's eyes, stubborn yet filled with the fear of being abandoned again. He looked at Lucas sleeping heavily on the floor beside Anna's bed because he didn't want to be far from his sister. He looked at Daisy and Toby clutching their new stuffed bear. In that moment, Sebastian realized a painful truth. Money could buy soft beds, but not safety. They didn't need boarding schools. They needed someone willing to endure their chaos without leaving. He stepped forward, shut the laptop, and tossed it aside. "No," Sebastian said, sitting at the edge of the bed and awkwardly brushing Leo's hair. "I'm not sending anyone away. I was just trying to figure out how to buy a better washing machine." "It's not Eddie, really?" Anna asked, searching his face. "Really? Now hand the boy over. You sleep. You're only 7, don't try to be a mother yet." For the first time, Anna loosened her grip. Sebastian lifted Leo, feeling the warmth and weight of the tiny child. He began rocking him, clumsy but patient. The next morning, employees of Thorn Enterprises were shocked to learn their chairman had cancelled his entire schedule for the week. At the penthouse, a bizarre scene unfolded. "Ah. That hurts, Uncle Seb." Daisy yelped. "Hold still," Sebastian muttered, sweat dripping down his forehead. He was attempting to braid Daisy's hair following a YouTube tutorial. "Where does this bow go? Why is hair structure more complicated than corporate merger structure?" "You're doing it wrong," Lucas said beside him, munching on a piece of burnt toast Sebastian had made himself because the chef had run away. "You have to split the hair into 3 parts. Be quiet and eat your charcoal bread, Lucas. Or I'll make you play another chess match with me." "I already beat you twice," the boy shrugged. That chaotic but warm atmosphere was suddenly interrupted when the doorbell rang. It wasn't a guest, but a private investigator he had secretly hired. Sebastian signaled for the children to keep eating, then stepped into the hallway and took the thick black folder. "Mr. Thorne," the detective said quietly, "we found information about the biological parents of the children. Toby and Mia have a mother, but she's in a rehab center and has a criminal record for abuse. Lucas's father is a gambler running from debt. And Anna, her only remaining relative, already transferred her guardianship to Silas's group." Sebastian opened the file. Photos, charges, and evidence of the awfulness of those so-called parents flashed before his eyes. Sebastian looked into the living room. Daisy was admiring the crooked braid he had just made for her and smiling happily. Leo was sleeping peacefully on the sofa. Sebastian looked at the detective. "You're saying this is all the information you investigated on your own, correct? You haven't told anyone else?" "Yes, sir." Sebastian pulled out a lighter. Click. The flame rose, licking the edge of the folder. "Mr. Thorne? All that investigative work. I'm ending the investigation contract here. Pretend you never found anything. They have no past, understood?" The detective shivered at Sebastian's killing intent, nodded quickly, and backed away. Sebastian brushed the ashes off his sleeve, then returned to the living room with a warm smile, masking the dark secret he had just carried out. He had decided to steal them permanently from their past. 6 months. That was the amount of time needed to turn a chaotic war zone into a magnificent palace. And it was also the amount of time Sebastian Thorne needed to carry out the boldest theft in his life. Tonight, the Summit penthouse glittered with crystal lights. Mozart's chamber music played softly, blending with laughter and the clinking of glasses among New York's elite. But the center of the party wasn't Sebastian, it was the 6 little angels running around among the distinguished guests. No one recognized the filthy, ragged children from half a year ago. Daisy, the girl whose hair once looked like a bird's nest, was now twirling in a pink Dior silk dress, her golden hair neatly braided with pearl bows. Lucas, the once wary boy, now in a tailored tuxedo, confidently shook hands with a senator like a young gentleman. "Dad! Look at me!" The sharp little voice rang out. Mia ran across the hall and threw herself into Sebastian's arms. He bent down, lifting her effortlessly, no longer the clumsy man who once struggled to braid hair. Sebastian kissed his daughter lightly on the forehead and smiled. "Careful, princess, you're going to spill the ambassador's wine. But I want you to watch me dance." "You promised." Mia whined, wrapping her arms tightly around his neck. All right. Just one dance." The guests around them murmured in admiration. "Good Lord, Sebastian," a diamond-covered lady exclaimed. "You truly are a model father. Look at how much they resemble you. Who would have believed you used to be the man who hated children the most in New York?" Sebastian simply smiled politely without answering. Resemble him? Of course not. But his money had made the world believe it. He set Mia down, so she could run back to Anna, then turned toward the dark corner of the room, where Evelyn Thorne Enterprises' chief attorney was waiting with a tense face. Sebastian walked over, the smile fading from his face, replaced by his cold sharpness. "Is it done?" he asked quietly, eyes still observing the children. Evelyn swallowed hard, clutching her leather clutch tightly. "Sir, everything is done. But I have to say this is a legal miracle. We had to mobilize the entire legal team to use the rarest clauses in child protection law." "You're speaking too loudly, Evelyn," Sebastian cut her off calmly. "The result?" Evelyn, trembling, pulled out a thin envelope. "Sir, the legal team worked all night to activate the special adoption clause. The judge signed it early this morning." Sebastian took the envelope. Inside were 6 official adoption certificates, and the legal name change documents to Thorne. "Good. Transfer the bonus to your account." "And Evelyn?" Sebastian leaned closer to the attorney, whispering, "I want this file sealed completely, like a national secret." Evelyn nodded rapidly and disappeared into the crowd. Sebastian slipped the envelope into his breast pocket, right beside his heart. A dark satisfaction filled him. He hadn't returned them to addicts, convicts, or cold orphanages. He had cut their roots, torn them from barren soil, and replanted them in his velvet-covered garden. "Uncle, I mean. Dad, what are you thinking about?" Anna's voice came from beside him. The 17-year-old girl now shone in a navy evening gown, her beauty sharp and intelligent. She no longer called him uncle, but her eyes still held memories of those stormy days. Sebastian looked at Anna, the only one old enough to fully understand what he had done. "I'm thinking about choices," Sebastian replied, handing her a glass of juice. "Do you regret it? Forgetting the past?" Anna looked toward Leo, giggling while playing with the new corgi. The chubby boy was healthy and showed no trace of the fever that once nearly killed him. She looked at Lucas, Mia, Toby, and Daisy, all radiant, safe, and loved. Anna turned back, her gaze steady. "They're not our parents. They're just the people who gave birth to us but abandoned us or hurt us. But you." She took Sebastian's hand. "You're the one who opened the door when it was raining. You're the one who burned that file. I know what you did so we could stay here. And I don't care whether it's right or wrong." Sebastian squeezed his daughter's hand gently. A sweet complicity between 2 survivors. "Thank you, Anna." The chime signaling family photo time rang. Vogue's top photographer was waiting. "Everyone, come here." Sebastian clapped loudly. The 6 children immediately dropped what they were doing and ran toward him like little birds returning to their nest. They surrounded him. Leo sat on his lap, Daisy and Mia clung to his arms, Lucas and Toby leaned against his shoulders, and Anna stood proudly behind them. Everyone smiled. 3, 2, 1. The flash burst brightly. That moment was preserved forever. A perfect family portrait. A benevolent billionaire father, and 6 angelic children. Sebastian looked into the camera, smiling genuinely for the first time in 30 years. In his mind, there was no regret at all. The world could call him a kidnapper, a forger, an arrogant man who used money to take whatever he wanted. But he didn't care. He looked at the children. They were his. He had stolen them from fate, from terrible parents, and even from God himself. And if he had to do it all over again, he would burn that file 1,000 more times. Because sometimes, to be a hero, you have to accept becoming a magnificent villain. The end. What do you think about Sebastian's actions? Is it noble love or the cruel selfishness of a wealthy man? Is he a hero who saved the children? Or a criminal who robbed them of their right to know their origins? Leave your thoughts below, because your answer will reveal who you truly are.